Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast, available on all platforms including YouTube if you prefer to watch. My name is Jeremy Blain, CEO of Performance Works International, Executive Director of the Transformational Leadership Acceleration Institute, and Managing Partner of Diversity Talent. My aim is to bring insights from leaders, experts, and highly talented professionals from around the world. Insights, stories, and advice from the front lines of modern leadership to engage, inspire, and mobilize progress back in the workplace. Every episode is a learning opportunity for us all. The Rethink Leadership podcast also supports charities around the world. Each episode is in aid of a cause chosen by my guests, and to date, I'm proud to say we've supported over 60 global and local great causes. Today, I welcome Tim Lupinacci, the CEO and Chair at Baker Donelson, one of the top 100 law firms in the United States, where he leads over 1,300 individuals in 22 offices across the Southeastern US. Tim is presently leading the firm's 5-year BakerVision 2028 strategy and its bold commitment to diversity and inclusion. A lifelong leadership student, Tim recently launched a non-profit called Everybody Leads, focused on empowering individuals in underserved communities with basic leadership skills and confidence to better lead themselves, lead others, and lead in the community. A shared passion we both hold. We discussed Tim's current role as CEO and Chair at Baker Donelson and the transformation the legal profession is going through in the US. We also discussed Tim's passion for the potential in everyone in business and in our communities, and hear more about Tim's brand new social enterprise. We then share the importance of unleashing the power of the many rather than the few, one. This episode is in aid of hospitalityhub.org, Tim's charity of choice, and central to Tim's own Baker Care initiative at Baker Donelson. We've made a donation to this fantastic cause as a thank you to Tim for his time. Let's hear more. Hello, and thanks very much for joining me, Tim. Please tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey as a leader, and something about yourself that not many people might know.
That's great, Jeremy. I'm so thrilled to be here and talking with you. Every time that I listen to one of your podcasts, I have to have a notepad next to me because I always found that you bring out really practical advice. So this is just an honor for me to get to talk to you. So I'm looking forward to our chat. I'm the CEO and chair of Baker Donelson, which is one of the 100 largest law firms in the United States. We're headquartered across the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic area of this country and have 23 offices. I've been in this role for about 4.5 years, been a practicing lawyer for 33 years. Doing corporate bankruptcy and restructuring work, although the last 4 years is basically a full-time job leading the firm. And one of my side passions that I've really been enjoying the last year really is building a nonprofit to help bring basic leadership concepts into underserved communities, which I know we'll talk a little bit about as well. So I've been a lifelong leadership junkie that started with a real challenging time early in my career from my boss. And so I'm just excited to talk about leadership. And I really appreciate your book, The Inner CEO, which I also have and am gaining value from. So, but I guess something that some people don't really know about me is when I was growing up, we lived in a lot of different places. We moved around a lot, but one of them was Guadalajara, Mexico. So when I was in, I guess, 2nd to 6th grade, I lived there. So it really has a lot of influential threads of my life today, going back to that time, living in a different culture, my love of football or soccer, as we call it here, and even old Hollywood movies, because we used to watch Hollywood movies on Sundays as a family, because that was the only thing on TV in English during the week. So, so anyway, that's something that not a lot of people know about me.
That's brilliant. Thanks for calling it football. We have a lot of a lot tuning in from Europe and Asia Pacific, and they'll appreciate that.
No, that's right.
And it's interesting for me being a fan. So it's no longer Better Call Saul. It's Better Call Tim, is it then? Right? I guess. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
So you're a chair, you're CEO of Baker Donelson, and I know it's a law firm that prides itself on being trusted advisors in this rapidly evolving world. We've got digital, we've got accelerating transformation. And I imagine that is exactly the same for you as an organization and as a practice. and probably a tough one. So how does a modern law practice keep up to date in this age of speed?
Yes, that's a great question, Jeremy. It is everything is very rapid. Everything's moving faster. The challenging issues that our clients face are more complex, more uncertain than ever. Which is why you referenced us really trying to be better at being trusted advisors. But that also means we have to keep up with the latest in technology and innovation and innovative ways to serve our clients and help them achieve their strategic goals. So we spend a lot of time and resources investing in what we call our client solutions group, which really looks at various ways to incorporate not just creative pricing aspects, which is important, but also legal project management, that concept that has been involved in construction and manufacturing about project management. We've really taken that to the level of how we can serve our clients with those type of innovative tools, whether it's intranet sites where we share sites with the client so we can have real-time transfer of information and data and documents, all the way to really looking at how we can use artificial intelligence. And I know that's something that we're all still learning a little bit about. What does that mean into the future? But even some of the basic aspects of taking what maybe more routine type legal aspects that in the past may take hours of legal professionals' time to pull stuff together, that we can now use technology to create form contracts that the client can then fill in. And certainly that is a dynamic change of the law, where you're not having young lawyers billing all these hours doing a contract all the time, where we can really use the technology to help serve our clients. So I think it's just being open to innovation, not being afraid that we're going to lose the billable hour, which is how we get paid, but really we're going to be these trusted advisors. We want to help the client solve their problems more efficiently, and then they'll trust us more with the harder, more complex stuff. So it's really, I think, an openness to making sure that we're on the forefront of that. So that's some of the ways we think about that.
Yeah, that resonates as well. And I love that point that you're making about experimenting beyond the billable hour, not
Right.
being afraid to take that risk in probably what has been a risk-averse industry, I would imagine.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, we're on the low end of the spectrum of risk aversion, for sure. And it's comfortable, right, to just get the project, bill hours, get the project turned in, send the bill, get paid. And that's just, but really trying to think about how we can better partner with clients and help them achieve what they want to achieve, and be a win-win for both of us.
Yeah, and it's something I recognize as a professional services
Mm,
provider as well, is looking at different ways to do things and how you can shortcut processes, and
right.
not being afraid to do something new, and using that use of data, use of artificial intelligence to help you do that. Keen, I'm imagining, and you get that you this my ignorance will come out
Oh,
usually here, I'm absolutely sure. But the employment of AI in law, sure, and in the whole legal system, when you're trying to research a case, as I'm thinking about, then interrogating the data from almost 100 years ago up to date, where you would have had to do that manually, is that one of the tasks that AI can really help you with, to then unleash the power of actually the person as far as the case
well,
itself?
no, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting because we've had some really good technologies and tools for a while now to make that more accessible to research and look at the laws for hundreds of years. But then what's an interesting dynamic is this new like Chat GPT, and there's a recent decision here in the United States where somebody used that to write a legal brief, and they were citing to law that wasn't really law, because I don't understand. I'm like you a little bit. I don't understand the technology, but there are opportunities when you put just a general search into, as I understand it, certain search engines. If they can't find the exact answer, they try to find stuff adjacent. And so sometimes it's not necessarily accurate, which is critical in the law, right? You can't cite precedent that isn't really precedent. And that really got someone in trouble here. So I think we're all learning through it. There are a lot of advances, but what the future looks like, we have to all be careful, because we have that ethical obligation to our clients to get the right information. So
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that it's going to be a very interesting legal perspective on the likes of Chat GPT, and the whole noise now around how do we get behind to control artificial intelligence, to make sure that it doesn't go in the directions we don't want it to go to. It's a quite a rabbit hole to go down. So we won't
It
do that. But
does.
actually, what you picked up on is a point that I'll come to now, which I find interesting, because you talked about that the likes of yourself and myself, we're on this pretty steep learning curve as leaders. We've been in leadership for many years, but it's the 21st century now, not the 20th century, and we're learning how to lead in here, learning how to employ techniques like this. Whereas also we have employees who potentially are narrowing that traditional capability gap because they kind of know that they're growing up with a lot of this. And so it hits both of our passions around the potential in everybody. I know that.
Mhm.
But I'd like to ask you the specific question is, why do you think time is right now for businesses and communities to make what we usually call it leading at all levels, empowerment, distributed leadership,
Right.
something we've been talking about for decades, the reality that we really want it to be now?
Right, right. No, I totally agree, Jeremy. And that's really, it's born out of my own experience, but it's born also out of, as you said, the dynamic of the moment we live in and what we're leading in. Is that I challenge our colleagues. We have 1,300 people across the Southeast Mid-Atlantic, that everyone's a leader. It's the same idea you were talking about, and that for us to serve our clients, to give the best value and the best service to our clients, everybody has to step up. It's not one individual who may be the most knowledgeable about a particular topic, although we need that person to, when those situations come up. But it is, as you said, it's the distributed leadership that as a team, as a firm, we're going to help solve our clients' complex problems. And so, and to do that, we all have to get better every day. That's something I challenge myself with. And it's just been a part of my nature, that I want to learn every day. I want to read. I want to read and learn from industries outside the law, because then I can see what other folks are doing, and then I can bring and figure out how that really works with Baker Donelson in the legal environment. And so really have focused a lot on empowering our people to see that they can have their own pathway to success here at Baker Donelson, and not just putting words on the table about, I want you to be a leader, or I've really challenged all of us. We can all be trusted advisors, whether we deal with external clients or internal. We have to build that trust relationship between each of us. I can put that out there as a logo, as a phrase, as a vision, but I want to have training and skill building behind it. So I've built out, I know people make fun of it a little bit, I call it a trusted advisor mini MBA. Because I want us all learning and equipping everyone to get better at really which is leadership. Not just saying go be a better leader, but how can you be a better leader? And here are some concrete steps to do that. So I think it's about empowering. It's about putting that confidence and belief in everyone that they do have a leadership role here at the firm. But then it's also coming alongside and giving them opportunities to grow in those areas. So that's kind of some ways I've been thinking about it and trying to implement it.
Yeah, and coming back to what you said first of all, and all of us in together to
Yeah.
solve a client problem, we're stronger together, aren't we? We
Right.
can win
Yeah.
together. And it's I happen to do a lot of work in law consulting practices as a transformation expert,
Yeah.
with that different industry perspective coming in around what does digital mean, and how is that actually a misnomer, because it's more about whole business transformation. It's blending that human side to it.
Yeah.
And what does it mean in a very highly regulated industry, etc. But which is why my ears pricked up when you talked about so articulately at the beginning around around being willing to think differently about the traditional type industry of the law practice and so on.
Well, it really is transformational, Jeremy, as you said, and that's why it's really fascinating. I think why we've connected so well is because you are an expert in that transformation. Because I think for decades and decades, law firms were really viewed as almost like a partnership, like it was a close held kind of deal, and really the legal industry has become business. And one of the things when I first became CEO, I talked about we need to be a best run business like our clients. And that does mean we've got to have everyone stepping up and leading, because and finding their pathway, but also finding a purpose in what we're doing, because I know purpose is big with you as well. It all blends together in order to drive transformation, or else you're going to fail in doing that. So that's been a lot of what we've been trying to do with this approach is transformation. So I love how you connect those dots, because I think it's absolutely accurate.
And it links to the customer. It's when I'm asked that question, why digital? Why empowerment? Because it helps us serve our customers better. Simple as. You know, that's fundamental. Sounds simple, maybe not so easy in practice. You mentioned the word purpose there, and being purpose driven, and we share a passion for that. This podcast and this podcast series is an example. Everything goes towards and in aid of charities right around the world. In my small way, a very I'm not one of the top 100 players, but in my small way, any company, any entrepreneur can do this, and I hugely believe it. And you're very well known, actually, I know, for your sense of purpose and community. And in fact, you have built a new social enterprise, Everybody Leads, which links to that spirit of empowerment, but also to community. And we both buy into that, of course, with that wider belief of the potential of the many in our community, not just inside our corporate walls. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, about Everybody Leads, your aims, and why this is important now, and how you're making it happen?
Yeah, well, thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, it's interesting, because I think if you start back to like sort of the inner seed of how this started is we all are driven by when we feel we have a part of something bigger, that we're really making a difference in the world. And matter of fact, I think Daniel Pink has a book called Drive, and he talks about one of the fundamental things that drive us and motivate us is purpose. Like it's not we're not a cog in a system and just building out widgets and then getting a paycheck and going home, that we are impacting things. And so that's something I've always tried to look for, how I can make the world a better place personally in my small way, because there's obviously some of your listeners will literally change the world, the capital W world. For the rest of us like me, it's going to be, well, maybe I can change my little W world, the world I'm in, and how can I do that? And so I really try to talk a lot around the firm about the story of purpose and how we're really helping our clients, that in some instances they are changing the world. And so that purpose has been a part of who I am for a long time. And as I mentioned, really been challenged as a young lawyer about I needed to step up as a leader, and I didn't really know what that meant at the time, which led me on a long journey of trying to become better as a leader. And I had access to certainly books, going to conferences, now podcasts. And I've started really looking around and working with some nonprofits we work with around helping individuals who are struggling with homelessness and home insecurity, and trying to move them off of the streets into temporary housing, permanent housing, and jobs. And I started seeing there's so much great work done on like getting a driver's license, getting a bank account, getting some skills to go to work. But then what about those leadership skills? It's almost like a second level that needs to happen, where like conflict resolution and team building and interacting with others. And so I just had this light bulb go off that I feel like in a lot of our underserved areas of the world that we don't have that access to basic leadership skills and teaching. And so the idea of everybodyleads.org, a nonprofit, is to take basic leadership principles and skills that you and I and so many people have access. We can go sit in a conference and get some really great teaching, but maybe others don't. Take some basic leadership principles over some period of time, some modules, some interactive approaches, working on projects together to help see how leadership can play out, and really just doing that, whether it's individuals who are had been homeless and now are starting to have a new job, or individuals coming out of prison and re-entering into the society. Those basic leadership skills are things that I think everyone needs. And so tried to marry that in sort of my side job. I'm building it as I'm doing it, but as I'm running the firm. But it's just something I'm really passionate about and trying to help. So.
And that comes across, Tim. And I know that right at the beginning of what you were talking about around supporting the communities into the homeless as well, it's worth a shout out for Hospitality Hub that this episode is in aid of that. Would you tell us a little bit more about what they do?
Right, right. So we have something at Baker Donelson we call Baker Cares, where we try to partner with local organizations around a particular issue or cause or organization. And so we're in the middle of a 3-year commitment to trying to help eradicate homelessness across our footprint. And so I met the leaders of the hospitality hub in our Memphis, Tennessee market, and they really are trying to help empower individuals to not only move from homelessness to more security in where they live, but also with health opportunities to improve their health, and to find job skills to get a job. And a lot of it, the work they do is around family, single parents who are on the street living in cars, sadly, but they're doing some incredible work to just try to help equip individuals to move from that situation until to more permanent housing. And so it's been really rewarding to go work with them a few times. And so, yeah, thank you for supporting them.
What a cause. And in fact, when I look at that, but then look at Everybody Leads, your social enterprise and what you're trying to do with that, I can understand, because I share that passion around
Right.
everybody has that potential of what that can lead to. But perhaps you can tell me in your words the benefits of getting that right in terms of unleashing everybody as a leader in our societies and these communities as much as our enterprises.
Yeah. So again, I think, I mean, there's certainly the science and psychology behind it, but I've seen it in reality that there's a level of even speaking into someone that you believe in them as a leader, right? And that was what happened to me. I had a mentor, very rough boss, very hard boss, yelled a lot. But he mentioned to me that he saw, and the reason he got angry with me when I let myself down, let him down, was that he saw me as a leader, and no one had really even called me that. And I was like, well, if I'm a leader, I got to get better at this. It's the same way of inspiring others, and it can't just be words. I'm not trying to say it's Pollyanna and then everyone, oh, you're a leader, everyone's a leader, right? Like Oprah Winfrey or something. But it really is believing in them, but then coming alongside and showing them how they can get better every day at doing that. And so we really do try to tell purpose stories whenever we have town halls, whenever we have maybe we have some retreats where we gather our colleagues. We'll have individuals talk about how they married purpose with a career. One recent story I'm thinking about is one of our healthcare lawyers who does a lot of work in the behavioral health space. We had her share a story about how her whole practice grew out of some family situations where they needed some behavioral health help and support, and they were having a hard time getting access to it. Well, that led to her building a career. And she says every time when she's working on a behavioral health matter at her desk and it's late at night, she can tie it back to her family and also the community that she's helped. Some of these and some nonprofit organizations as well. So it's helping people believe they're leaders, but then equipping them with the skills to be able to do that, and really tie that to purpose and what we're trying to accomplish. So I know there's a lot there to do, and it's not easy, but I think it's just being intentional about trying to take steps to do it. And not everyone's going to buy into it, right? Not everyone says, oh yeah, I want to go do a mini MBA course and learn how to be a better leader. I really do just want the paycheck. But I think for most of our colleagues, they do see the benefit. And then, as you articulated very well earlier, it's all for the benefit. I mean, it drives incredible client loyalty, differentiation with our clients to see that we have a whole team really trying to help them. So those are just some thoughts I have around that topic.
I'd have to agree, because it's about intentional leadership, first of all,
Right.
from the very top, because none of this can happen without that buy-in of enlightened leaders like yourself, Tim, I have to say. And also we have to recognize that not everybody wants to be empowered,
Right.
or
Right.
wants to be that leader at their level. But I distinguish that in a very simple way. I talk about that's okay. You can step up or you can step out. Stepping up are those people that actually feel that they can unleash that inner leader and contribute more strategically and operationally. But for those that don't, saying that, okay, well, but in your role, you can step out of that role. You can start to solve problems with your teammates. You don't always have to have that supervisory management kind of discussion to do so, or innovate, or have some ideas about how we might service our clients. So there is that. But when it
Right.
boils down to it, I think that it's ultimately the culture that is set at the high leadership level that kind of drives that. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, I totally agree, and that's what, and that was really from the very start. We went through a, I don't know, 6-month process to name the next CEO, which was me. My predecessor had been in the role for 20 years, so it's like a lot of people hadn't seen the transition like that in a while. And so we had a town hall that kind of introduced me to the firm, and I had run one of our business units, so I knew a good bit of the firm, but I didn't know everyone. And I literally started out my first town hall with this idea that everyone's a leader and I needed everyone to help step up to drive the firm forward to have success like we had experienced. And then I followed that up by going on a sort of a trip around every office to sit in conference rooms and listen and get feedback and how can we get better. So I was not just saying the words, I was going around listening that their input mattered. And then, of course, I took a lot of their advice and implemented it. Now, not everything, but they saw that it wasn't just empty listening, it was putting into practice. And I think that does set the stage and the culture that everyone does matter, because I'm listening and we're helping to become better together. So totally agree with you that it's got to start with that cultural aspect from the top, with the whole leadership team and having that buy-in. And your actions have to support the words too. So.
Well, okay then. Well, you lead me to an obvious $64,000 question then, Tim, which is, what's the cost for leaders not buying into this, as in executive leaders, or executing it well? Because we know that many strategies fail because of implementation, not necessarily because of the definition. And this is a very important one. So when they're executing that all-level empowerment, if they don't do that without support, without the organizational structures, without psychologically safe foundations, what's the cost of that? Getting it wrong or not doing it?
Well, I totally agree. And it's interesting because, I mean, I know we could all point to examples of companies, organization leaders who don't do that, right? And they can be successful. To me, I just find that it's a real differentiator for us that we're all working together. That I totally agree about the psychological safety that's so critical, particularly post-COVID. Everyone wants to feel safe, that they can have to help drive the firm forward. I just think you lose a lot of opportunity if you don't do it. I guess I've always been focused on trying to lead that way. It's what gets me up in the morning. I wouldn't want to be a dictatorial type leader and just say, let's go do this. I think it helps with engagement. It helps with retaining talent. And it does help with serving our clients the best that we can. So it's just always worked for me, and it's worked for the teams I've been on, and it's worked for our firm since I've been in this role. So I'm glad not to know a whole lot about the negative about what happens if you don't do it, but I just see the incredible benefits if we do it. So
it just strikes me, maybe I'm a bit unfair adding in a question here, but it just in terms of quantifying that a little bit, and maybe, are there some concrete benefits and qualitative benefits that you've seen not just visualized when you were kind of launching this, but have come to fruition that you could maybe share?
Yeah, so I'm very much support of that. If I'm going to launch a vision, or if I'm going to talk about these type of concepts, I want to have measurements. I want to be held accountable personally to say, because I don't that we're doing it. And so we launched what we call BakerVision 2028 a couple of years ago, which is around every individual in the firm becoming better trusted advisors to our clients, which has a lot of levels in there. But a couple of the high level things that we wanted to measure against, because it really is all about clients, people in the firm. So clients, we wanted to have some measurement about whether we're building and increasing the number of strategic clients, meaning we're doing work for individual clients in more than one business line. We've got a lot of great clients that we love, that we do work in maybe one particular legal area, but we become more strategic advisors to them if we're doing it in multiple lines. So we're measuring that. We have some measurements about what that means. And so in the first couple of years, we have increased the number of strategic clients For people, it's engagement. And so we do external engagement surveys. This isn't the only way to tell that you're making progress and that you have an engaged workforce, but it was a way that we did. And from the first survey we did before we launched BakerVision to this year, we've gone up. We just got the results back last month. We've gone up in every category of engagement around a lot of those topics we've talked about like psychological safety and having a part and purpose in something we're driving. And so we've got a long way to go. There's some areas that are still low. They came up, but they're still low. We have to keep getting better, but it's a test on ourselves. And then as it relates to the firm, we have done some external brand awareness type metrics, and we have improved in the context of what general counsel, CEOs thinking about law firms. And again, that's one source, but it's something that everyone in the firm has a part of, because as they go speak at conferences or write articles or provide excellent legal services, our firm gets named in these interviews, which are not interviews about what do you think about Baker Donelson, but who are law firms you trust. And so those are just some practical ways. And I mean, we've had the last 2 years have been record financial years. I'm not driven as much on, this is odd for me to say, I'm not driven by finances and money and trying to grow the pie bigger, except to the extent that it'll help us serve our clients better and I can pay market pay to our people. So I've got to keep my eye on that. And we have certain specific metrics we're trying to drive on financials, and we've had 2 record years. So those results with our people, with our clients, is leading to financial success. So I do see how it's all connected in there by focusing on engagement and leadership of all our people. So
thank you very much for that, Tim. And I understand what you mean about the questions that people might ask around Baker Donelson and that switching now to being a trusted advisor, as you were talking about before. And reputation management is one of the key plays for leadership we know these days. And it sounds like you're making some progress. And it's given me a couple of different ideas, actually, and particularly around how you articulate the improvements in things like engagement and these not so qualitative elements that mean a lot in the age where employees have a lot of power of choice these days.
Right.
And they're looking for those organizations that are socially competent as well as competent in their business realm, purpose driven and so on.
Yeah, we and on that questionnaire, I mean, it's on a scale where you like 1 to 5 or whatever on a lot of questions. But the thing that's most valuable to me is that there's also room for dialogue, feedback that's more than just beyond the questions, and that's where the real gems of insights are, because those are things we can get better at. And we also did in that concept did upward reviews. So we had every individual reviewing their direct report, boss or leader, and then we've told those leaders, you got to take your feedback, tell everyone, thank you, I hear you, and these are some steps I'm going to do to get better. So it all builds together to just, again, to see that everyone's empowered to help us get better. So those are just some ways. And again, that's not the only way to do it, but it's a way that has worked for us the last couple of years.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's worked in a big way.
Yeah.
You actually talked about also right at the beginning, you talked about looking externally to the industry,
right,
to get some ideas. So I'm curious, as you've implemented this and this more empowering approach and unleashing the power of people, have there been communities or companies or leaders that you have modeled some of what they've done on for Baker Donelson? And what is the return on experience that you kind of built on?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I mean, I feel like I read a lot, and so certainly a lot of principles from some of the leadership authors like Jim Collins and Good to Great and Businesses That Last, Built to Last, I think are a couple of his books. Or Patrick Lencioni has a lot talking about the engagement and the real advantage that companies have when you focus on your employees and have that engagement. as I mentioned, Daniel Pink has got some really excellent resources. So I think those are type of things I've done. But then I read, there's some jokes around Baker Donelson. I'll mention Harvard Business Review. And then they say they have to take a drink every time I say HBR because I talk about it a lot. But that's where I really get a lot of leaders from different industries. McKinsey, Boston Consulting, they all put out really good materials that have really helped me in my leadership role. So and I also talk to leaders of other law firms. That's one of the things. Once you're in this role of the CEO, it's kind of a lonely place. And so I have quarterly calls with CEOs of other law firms that I really admire and see what they're doing. And we just can share in a safe space things we're challenged and things we're learning. And that's been really helpful too.
Always be learning, hey, Tim?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I subscribe to that too. And
Yeah.
maybe this has been such an insightful conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe as a summary, I'm going to make it about you now, Tim. So as a leader yourself, you're in, corporate US leadership, but you're also starting this social enterprise. What have you learned about the secrets to true empowerment, but of people at all levels, of course, but also the leadership that has to go behind that from the very top, and how that impacts particularly hierarchical approaches that we may see in other industries still to leadership and management, engagement, as you talked about before, all of those kind of things almost being underpinned by trust. What would be the 4 or 5 key things that you could put on the table for us?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeremy. One thing that I know for a while, I got a lot of researchers were writing about this, but sort of EI, empathetic leadership. I think that's something that I've really worked hard to learn a lot about, to try to understand. I've had my journey. I've learned things because of what has happened with me, but everyone's got different journeys. Everyone's in different place of that journey on various topics. And so just being curious to want to understand and learn, I think that's a subset of empathy. So certainly being curious has been something as well. I think during COVID, my COO and I, we both kind of like Disney world, Disney things, and that the Frozen 2, the movie came out, and there was a song in there about taking the next right step. And so in COVID, we kind of had that catchphrase among ourselves, which it's a complex issue. There's no playbook for this, no blueprint. But what's the next right step? Considering our people. And so that's something that has really led me as well through this. So those are some. I've got I think resilience is something else that there are setbacks all the time, and I think being resilient is something that has really helped me to I may stumble, I'll make a mistake, to be humble enough to realize the mistake, to apologize when I make mistakes, and then go a different direction. And what did I learn from it? So always be learning. Those are a couple things. Those are some things I think have really helped me over the last several years for sure.
I've just had this vision of you and your CFO and the rest of the board in the movie theater singing along to Frozen 2 and taking that back. But what a great line, taking the next right step. It immediately resonates with that. So that'll be a great way to publicize this one, I can tell you.
Well, and then I won't go into all of it, but when you unpack the people, the really creative folks who wrote that song, there is some background of this idea of folks who really, were struggling, maybe even with mental health and wellness, and like taking the next right step is, okay, I'm just going to get out of bed today. And the next right step is I'm going to get a cup of coffee. I mean, there's some really, if you really look at that and research it, that song, I didn't know that at the time. It was just a really good catchphrase for us because we wanted to do what was best for our people and our clients. But so yeah, it's a really amazing piece of artwork, creativity.
Well, it is, and you mentioned, I mean, a whole different topic, but this sense of empowerment, everybody being in the same boat. You talking about empathy, being humble,
yeah,
helping everybody understand that leaders at our level, we don't always get it right. We don't always feel right either.
Yeah.
And understanding that we now have a duty of care to look after ourselves, our mental health, our physical well-being, of ourselves and others is fundamental to that empathy-driven or human-centered leadership approach post-COVID, and it's a good thing, I believe.
Totally, and as a leader, being open and transparent about that, I think, is important. So then it makes it comfortable for others, to talk about that. I talk a lot about that. I have to have really daily disciplines about running and eating and some thinking time and prayer time, and then also that I have I talk to a counselor once every 4 to 6 weeks, just to a safe space to talk through things. Maybe I'm trying to unpack why I find myself getting more irritable about these type issues, and then he can help me really work through that. So, and being transparent about that to our firm, and we brought in licensed psychologists to do town halls for us, and she's really invested in our firm, and we have opportunities for individuals that can do one-on-one sessions with her. Initially, the firm will pay for it. If they want to do more, then they can go do that. So all that to say is, you're right. I mean, and you've had some great episodes on your podcast really to address that. The woman from Solaris, I thought that was brilliant about it's mind, body, and soul, right? That and being intentional about talking about it is so important.
That's Dr. Anna Eckhart from the last season. Yes, that was a fascinating discussion, actually. But I have to say, as we draw to a close on this, that Tim, from my experience, you represent a blueprint of what a great modern leader looks like, and how you walk the talk as much as just kind of use the words. And I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. And I am sure that many tuning in will want to get in touch, continue the discussion, connect. So how did they do that, Tim?
Well, I really appreciate your kind words, Jeremy. I feel the same about you. I really appreciate this. So Baker Donelson, BakerDonelson.com is the firm, and I'm on there. You can find me there. And then the nonprofit is Everybody Leads, LEADS.org. So you could connect with me there, and I'm on LinkedIn, and I love to talk and get to know new people. So love to have a dialogue with you.
Well, great, Tim. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. Please like, comment, and support us on your favourite platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.